All right, we're live. Welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. Should be a pretty good one again. Um, let's just go around and do some introductions. I'm going to start on my left with Jordan.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan. Second time on here, WordPress developer. Thanks, Roy.
Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Newville. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I am a WordPress generalist. We do everything from design build to taking care of websites and hosting.
Awesome. Um, guy in the green shirt.
That's me. That's right. Nobody knows my name because whatever. Okay. I'm Matt Cromwell. I work at WordPress.com. We build Give and Maps Builder Pro and lots of other great stuff. I do support, and I annoy Roy as much as possible.
You do. And Mike.
I'm Mike Corkum. I'm the senior web developer at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada.
All right. So apologies in advance. For some reason, only Mike and I's lower third name bar works. I did not plan it that way. It's just very convenient. So what's been going on? What was that?
The rest of us are just anonymous. That's all I was going to say. Sorry.
Yeah. What's been going on this week? The biggest thing that was brought to my attention this week, Kate, you actually posted it, was the Jeff versus Jeff conversation on WP Tavern. Jeff Yablon and Jeff Chandler. Actually pretty interesting, I think, overall. Kind of the conclusion to this, one of the bigger WP drama things that have been going on with using WordPress in a company name. So that, you know, the whole foundation has a trademark on it, and people were talking about how he might be able to get away with it because, you know, word and press are two different words. They just kind of stuck them together. So it's interesting to see the end of that all come together. I know Jeff Yablon's not too happy about the decision, what happened, but it looks like they settled without going to court. So that's also a good thing because I know that can get kind of pricey. But yeah, it's been an interesting conversation to follow.
Roy, let me summarize real quickly what it was about for people who aren't familiar with it. Jeff Yablon had used the word WordPress in one of several of his domain names, and this violates the terms of use that the WordPress Foundation has set up for people using the name WordPress in their businesses. And when they told him to stop, he turned around and there was some legal action involved, and eventually it settled out of court with Yablon agreeing not to use WordPress in new domain names. He can use it in a subdomain name like wordpress.domain.com. And I believe he had to turn over the infringing domain names to the foundation. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think that's pretty much sums it up. Which is, and again, that's I've never been a I don't say a fan of, but I've never been on Jeff's side. I think that WordPress should be, if they have their trademark on it, it's fine. They let us use WP in any domain name, and they even let you use WordPress in a subdomain or a subdirectory. So I think, you know, using in a domain directly or a root level domain is fair game. Is not fair game. Essentially, they have the right to be the only ones to use it. So I think it was fine. I think it was a good outcome, and hopefully that kind of concludes that WP drama story, and hopefully there aren't any more, because I know that was a big thing for a couple weeks back. Not sure if anything else really happened this week. So let's just get into our discussion. So today we're talking about things we love and hate about WordPress. I think it's kind of interesting because a lot of people hate on WordPress, and I get that a lot, especially when I'm in other communities outside of WordPress. When I'm in more of the JavaScript meetups and the some of the other communities that are in the development world. I think that's pretty common practice or pretty common knowledge that as developers, as soon as we move into another realm of community, people tend to look down on oh my God, not oh my God, but man, you're a WordPress developer, and they kind of have that uh, kind of aura, I guess. They just assume you're not as good or never going to be as good. So there's definitely a lot of hate, I would say, towards WordPress. But we've been using it for a while. Most of us in this chat have been doing WordPress work for better part of a decade. So obviously there's reasons we love it too. So maybe this is a good time to speak our mind on both sides. Why don't we start with things we actually love about WordPress, just to get the mood going good. I'll start. I definitely love how easy it is to build with WordPress. It's definitely one of the easiest CMSs I've ever had a chance to work with, and I've worked with all of them, or at least most of the popular ones that are out there. As far as setting up a basic website or a blog, it's not much. You don't get from zero to at least a finished website quicker, I would say, than with WordPress. Granted, you have Wix and Squarespace that are not really in the same realm, so I can't really compare. But if you're managing your own website and all the files and you're doing all the FTP and everything, I don't think there's a quicker way to get a website up that's as fully functional and rich as what you get with WordPress.
Just to speak to what you said earlier there, Roy, about other developers not, or looking down on you for using WordPress, I think some of that may just come from a lack of knowledge of how extendable WordPress is and the amount of things that you can do with it. We've had people from the Drupal community look at Carlton's website and say, wow, you built that with WordPress. How did you do that? And you just, it's a pretty easy explanation. So I think one of the things I would say I love the most about WordPress is how extendable it is.
Yeah, it's a good point. Matt, as someone who works on a company that extends WordPress with plugins, what are some things you really love about working with it? Maybe even from your point of view as someone who's an extender of, what WordPress is out of the box.
I mean, I do a lot of things. The thing I enjoy the most is honestly interacting with the community. I think the WordPress community rocks. I don't want to give any spoilers, but that's probably going to be the first thing I say about the things I hate too. But it's the WordPress community is like one of the most generous tech communities that I know. They don't think of themselves as competitors ever until they do, but they generally don't, and they don't think of they always think of giving and helping, and I think that is the thing that really pushes WordPress into more adoption globally. I think that's the thing that makes more innovation happen all the time in WordPress, and I think without that we wouldn't be talking at all together today, and we wouldn't be building the cool stuff that we're building today.
It's a good point. I think, and I wrote a blog post about this a while back, but it's kind of with WordPress, unlike I think almost any other CMS, it's hard to talk about WordPress without talking about the community because, yeah, you could be a WordPress developer and you're kind of just on your own, not doing anything, but some of the best WordPress developers you're going to come across are really active in the community in some level. They either talk at WordCamps, they run a meetup, they go to meetups. They're people who, at least in their local, region, are well known, and it's not because they're doing even the most outstanding work. They're just good developers and good consultants. They're because they're part of the community. So like I think one of the things I guess I agree. I love WordPress because it's not just about me sitting and doing code and making my life easier because I'm being able to create a website faster. It's every once a month I can go to a meetup and hang out with other people that are doing the same exact thing. And a couple times a month or a couple times a year, I'm at a WordCamp over for a weekend talking to people who are doing the same exact thing. So I think they're very closely related. How about you, Jordan? You're from up north. How's the WordPress community up there, and what do you love about WordPress?
There are definitely a few things that I love about WordPress. The community for sure is a big part of it. Without the community, I don't think WordPress would be as strong or as predominant as it is. So the community is definitely one of the things I love. I love meeting people with common interests and people that are doing new and exciting things. From a personal standpoint, I like how WordPress has been able to provide many different streams for the entrepreneur to say, you could be in the product industry or in the service industry or in the hosting industry, all tying back to WordPress. So it's almost like this catalyst for any entrepreneur to go out there and say, hey, you know what, this is what I like. I'm going to use WordPress and I'm going to make money from it. So from my standpoint, that's kind of what I like the most.
How about you, Kate? What do you love about WordPress? You've been using it for quite a while, and you consult with it.
Yeah, that's what I started to say, is that I've been using WordPress since version 1.2. So I've been at it almost from the very beginning. And it is, for me, as Jordan said, that one of the major attractions is that I can use WordPress to help people get their businesses online, to get them going in whatever whatever direction their dream takes them. And that's a really big thing for me. A lot of people like the ease of use of WordPress. There may be some out there that are easier to use. You mentioned Wix and Squarespace. But for the majority of people, the balance between the flexibility of WordPress and the ease of use is what makes it the best tool for a lot of people. As far as the community goes, it's absolutely wonderful. It really is. And I do a lot of speaking at WordCamps. I'm on this group. And you guys are my lunch buddies, if you will.
You're going to make us tear up.
Yeah, I know. It's so sweet. I think, it's definitely a good solution. I don't think there's been much, I've been an open source developer for a long time. Everything I code, except for the few things I like to, try to make a little bit of money on, I pretty much just open source. Anything I've worked on since I've learned, as I was getting into Angular, everything I worked with Angular and WordPress, I've always open sourced everything. And one thing that's unique is we talk a lot about the community. There's not too many communities I can think that relate or that compare to the WordPress community when it comes to an open source anything. Like, I've never gone to a meetup group for any other open source CMS, I guess. And I just don't think the communities are there all the time. Like, there's meetup groups. I've been to meetup groups for React, JavaScript, and all that, but they're not the same. You'll get a hodgepodge of people. You'll get a lot of different people, a lot of different faces. But with the WordPress community, especially when you're talking about in a region, you tend to see the same faces, and they're pretty much just become your friends, whether they live right next to you or a couple hours drive away. They're still friends, and you can still relate and talk to them at any given time. I just don't see that with any other open source community out there right now, which I think is pretty unique. Another thing I really like about WordPress, and is again, it's easy to build with, and it's super extendable. Mike, you were talking about that. So people who might not know, it's pretty given that WordPress, you can pretty much, just like everyone says, there's an app for that. When you talk about phones, there's usually a plugin that will do just about anything. And so whether you are looking to build an e-commerce site out of WordPress or something a little more basic but with like a little bit of extended functionality, 9 out of 10 times you're going to find a plugin, even a free one in the repo, that that will do pretty much exactly what you're looking for, or very, very close, with some options. So I think that's one thing that, again, it makes WordPress very easy to build with. And
Yeah.
people like Kate, who sell services of building websites for businesses, it allows her to do her job a lot easier because, again, any business that comes to her, she's been able to find a solution or piece together a solution pretty quickly.
Yeah, honestly, like that's another thing. Probably the second thing I really like the most is kind of a combination of the community and the extensibility together. Basically, the fact that WordPress is so extensible and there is such a community behind it means that WordPress itself becomes this really great kind of educational incubator. You can go from basically like a Wix type website builder into eventually a plugin developer or big enterprise website developer just by sticking with WordPress, just by sticking with it and being like, I don't understand that yet, but between what is here in my hands already and talking to other people who know more than I do, I can make it happen. And if you just keep sticking with it, it becomes your best educational tool available. I mean, it's we joke about it in our advanced WordPress Facebook group all the time. Like, let me Google that for you. Like, why didn't you check first? Why didn't you look online first whether or not your question is already answered 25,000 times in other websites? Like, the answers are out there. They're all there. They're ready, and you can grab them and start making it happen. So I keep saying things that I'm going to gripe about. I don't mean to do that. But, nobody's going to stick around for the second half of the show.
Go for it.
I would just like to say my boss has had clients here, faculty members here, actually come to us and ask us if WordPress can do a blog. And I think that that's pretty cool because I think that we've customized it to the point where they don't even recognize that it was initially built as a blogging tool. And I think that that's just a testament to how extendable and customizable it really is. And another thing I would just like to mention, I think this goes back to community, but the documentation for WordPress is just fantastic. I was working on a few projects lately with other CMSs, and just trying to find anything, just trying to find any bit of information was just horrible. And I think that the codex is awesome, and they've done a really good job of it, and that really helps. It helps all levels of developers, really, but I think that it makes WordPress an easier CMS to get into.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen, back to Matt's point, I've seen quite a few people, especially in my community specifically, especially in LA, when you might not see them at meetups every month, but you'll see them at WordCamps, or you'll see them at WordCamp. We have a lot of WordCamps here in the Southern California area, so Matt's down in San Diego, and I'll go down to his meetup or his WordCamp, which is about a 2-hour drive. So you'll see the same faces, more or less, and then you see them periodically throughout the year, and you'll see people that do come from an entry-level point where they're like, yeah, I'm building a website for, a client of mine, my first time ever, and I'm just, installing a plugin and a theme and changing some settings around. And then a year goes by, and then you see them again, or even you see them throughout the year at other WordCamps, and they start talking about CSS, or they start talking about like a PHP function, and then a year goes by, and then they're now using underscores and creating their own themes. And I've seen that, often enough. I've seen it enough that it makes helping people like that a pleasure, because they're actually trying to advance themselves, and there isn't much of a better tool out there, I think, than WordPress, because it is a great starting point and a place to really get advanced. And going back to what Mike said, same thing. I was at a speaker dinner, I think, last year for WordCamp Los Angeles, which is coming up this week, and I was sitting at a table, and we're talking about, two speakers talking, me and this other speaker, and I'm like talking about how my talk is about using Angular and the REST API and building all these really cool, intricate things with WordPress. And he's like, my talk's about creating blogs with WordPress. And we were just like on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's kind of another cool thing. I mean, you get people that are building really cool advanced things. Mike's building a whole working on a website for a university, which is, pretty damn cool. Uh, I work in enterprise, and then Kate's working on small business stuff, and then you get people who are just like, you know what, I just want like a travel blog. So they just throw up a WordPress website, and it's something very, very simple. They might not even maintain it for a full year, but for whatever amount of time they're traveling, they're blogging and they're talking about their travels. So there's a super big spectrum with WordPress, and I think that's another really cool aspect of it. And that also ties into the community again, because you get, again, people who are super advanced, who are always willing to help out someone who's not as advanced, and you get people that are just coming in, whether it's their first blog or their first client, whatever, and they're trying to figure out what to do and how to learn more.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit on what Roy said, even from my own experience and from my developer experience, WordPress has actually helped us learn more in general. So when I was starting out learning PHP, HTML, CSS, I found that digging into WordPress and buying themes and digging into tools and plugins really helped me as a developer learn more. And if my head developer was here, she would probably say the same thing. Her skills when she first worked here, is drastically improved, and that's simply because we've had opportunities to build cool things with WordPress, learn more, and just really improve on what we know and what we can do just based on experience and just time. So even WordPress as a tool to help you learn development, I think is also a pretty cool added benefit.
Yeah. So I'm going to transition here because we have a little less than 10 minutes left. I think there's definitely 10 minutes plus worth of other things to talk about. But one thing we were talking about before we started the show, a little pre-show, was kind of tying back into the community, but plugins, right? So plugins are out there; they're readily available in the repo. And one thing I super dislike when it comes to plugin developers, I would say that they put their plugins in the repo and they do not want to support them. Um, I can't even say that this is hate on WordPress directly because it's not, but it makes me look bad because I build plugins and I throw them in the repo, or I'll outsource them, or sorry, open source them, and I love giving support. I was just talking to somebody on one of my support tickets for one of my plugins. Wasn't even a support ticket. It was just him asking me Angular questions because it was for my Angular plugin. He was asking me if he should be learning Angular 2, and it, again, not a support ticket at all. Nothing wrong with the plugin. It was just me being that person who wants to give back to the community. And then I'll go to another plugin and I'll see some guy answer a one-liner to a legitimate support ticket saying you should buy the pro version, and that was it. And so this is one thing that really, what does Peter Griffin say? It really grinds my gears about the WordPress community at times. And um, one thing I generally dislike about WordPress and what's going on with it right now. How about you guys? What are things you dislike about WordPress, the community, things like that?
I actually chatted with a couple of folks yesterday about this topic, and I was listening to the gripes, and it also got me thinking, like, well, we can gripe about a lot of things. It just depends on how you define WordPress, because, for example, the core team really loves to define WordPress by WordPress core and nothing else. It's basically there's WordPress core and then there's third-party plugins, and of course, when you want to start complaining, um, all the complaints can be directed outside of WordPress core. So, but like the thing that you were mentioning is more about um, plugin developers, and not about WordPress directly. It's about developers who don't do support very well, and a lot of users will also just complain about plugins. But like, so we could take like a really broad view of what WordPress is, and there can be a lot of things to complain about. Um, or you take a really minimalist view, and then it's like, hey, we have a couple of security updates every once in a while. What's the big deal? Like, I don't know. I don't want to derail the conversation at all, but like, how you define WordPress kind of informs how you complain about it. I guess.
That's very true. Mike, what about you? I know you're in higher ed. Are there any gripes you have with WordPress specifically with what you're using it for, or just generally what in your day to day?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Uh, we have a lot of individual installs. Some stuff just doesn't lend itself to multi-site. So, and it can be a little bit time consuming to keep everything up to date. So it's, I know Matt was saying that, hey, there's a couple security releases now and then, but when you release a new version, like you have 4.3, and then it's gotten to the point now where we just wait until, because we know like a week later it's going to be 4.3.1. And I know that it's, you know, a big moving machine and it's hard to notice all those things or catch all those things until it's actually out in the wild. But that's kind of a pain. Plugins, there are so many just horrible plugins. And I don't know, there doesn't seem to be a lot of standards around plugins. And I just, some of them are so bad. And some of the even really popular ones, I won't name any names, are just not great. Let's put it that way. That's.
I think
Yeah.
one thing with the repo also is the fact that you can find plugins on there that haven't been, touched in like the better part of like 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know they think they're starting to get better about that, and you can adopt plugins nowadays, especially if a developer wants to let you adopt their plugin they no longer want to support. But you find plugins on there, and especially even if you're using the WordPress dashboard backend to like find new plugins, that just haven't been updated in forever, and you know they're not going to be. So why do they keep them around? Even they're probably just going to break your site anyway because they don't keep up with any of the standards or anything that's been deprecated.
Yeah, we try to use as few plugins as possible. But again, sometimes it doesn't always make sense to reinvent the wheel. But when you have a large collection of websites that need to be up all the time, and someone doesn't update a plugin or something breaks in a plugin, and that can bring everything down, that sucks. So we, yeah.
How about you, Kate? From a consulting point of view, what are things that you generally have gripes about when it comes to WordPress?
One of the biggest gripes that nobody's mentioned is similar to the plugin issue, and that's themes. Some of them that are commercially available are very bloated and not very well coded. And I've had several times when clients would buy a theme from one particular theme provider in general, and install it and not be able to configure it and get all upset and think, well, WordPress sucks because I can't get this particular theme configured to look like the demo. I think that's some of it. The other thing is that even though I said earlier that WordPress is relatively easy to use, for a complete novice, WordPress is not intuitive. I've had clients who got their brand new WordPress website and then immediately started emailing me because they can't do something in the edit screen that they can do in Microsoft Word. Well, I can do this in Word. Why can't I just drag this box over here and set up a text box and make it look like that? So there's a lot of education involved with clients who are completely unfamiliar with WordPress. And that's not something that I dislike. It's just a kind of a fact of life, I would say.
Yeah, sometimes I think we say it's very easy to update a WordPress site or maneuver around one, but it's not always the case. Not everyone is going to find it as easy as we do, considering we've been using it for so long. Or, we might have that tech savviness that we're enough to say, hey, this is pretty easy, WYSIWYG, all that. But some people need a website. They want to be able to update it. They need a little bit more hand-holding. So I know that's the case.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I do an awful lot of teaching on WordPress. So there's another that goes back to what I like about it is that it's another opportunity for me to help people learn how to use it.
So we're just about out of time, but I wanted to bring up one thing because, Jordan, Jordan, Matt, and Mike and Kate, we all have developer tendencies. We're all developers. Something that Ansel Taft actually asked during Matt Mullenweg's AMA yesterday kind of caught my attention. And do you think that, Matt, you kind of talked about the kind of core team. Do you think there's a disconnect between developers who are using WordPress on day-to-day and the core team? Do you think that sometimes they just don't listen to what people who actually are using WordPress want or use it for? Because I remember when the menus got put into Customizer, every single developer who was consulting and or building websites with WordPress was just like, why did you do that? No one asked for that. What a bad decision. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's been kind of my gripe for a little bit too, is sometimes they do things and I'm just like, this is horrible. This is not going to make my life a little bit more painful.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a disconnect. But I think in some ways it goes both ways, because a lot of the folks who really are very vocal in these online communities are also not involved in the WordPress Slack channel or not involved in digging through the codex and checking out make.wordpress.org, not involved in answering support tickets for free. So they feel blindsided by stuff that's been talked about for a long time already. So they all of a sudden they read about it in Tavern. But there was conversation that went into it for more than a year before it got to Tavern. So that goes two ways, I think. So the disconnect, at least.
I definitely agree.
It's a good point.
Yeah. So maybe I think there can be a bridge. Maybe the core team should make some other kind of way of making it more readily available to understand what's going on and what's going to be coming out, and make it a little bit easier. Because I understand that not everyone has the time to go through Make and the track tickets and all that. I wish I did. I don't have the time. I'd love to contribute back more code and have more time to contribute, but between day job and all the other stuff that goes on, I just don't have enough hours in the day. And it sucks because I really do want to contribute, but I think there's an easier way, and I'm not sure it's there yet. I think there has to be a better way to communicate, for that communication bridge to exist.
I think they were hoping that Slack was going to be it, though, and I'm not convinced that it is, because as soon as you join the WordPress Slack channel, it becomes like notification overload. There's just it's crazy. It's hard to
And you have to be there for meetings to really understand what's going on. So like, to really understand what's there and what's happening, you have to be there for a specific meeting time, for a specific track channel within WordPress. So it's not even. I would say that it's definitely one step in the right direction, and people now have should have an easier time understanding what's going on and finding that information and getting involved. But I'm not sure if the Slack is necessarily the solution for that. I'm not sure. I mean, I give core developers a lot of credit. I mean, they deserve it. They spend a lot of time building out this thing that we use on a regular basis, that we make money off of, and they're not getting paid for the most part to do that. And they deserve all the credit in the world, but there has to be a better way to bring the two together, the two sides. All right, that's it from me. Anyone else have any closing remarks? Anything you love, hate, whatever about WordPress? Nope. All right, cool. Well, I will see you guys next week. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, Roy.